Welcome back to the Stephen Knight Show. Imagine your son is falsely arrested on 9 felony charges, and you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to help him clear his name, which eventually happens, but you can't get your money back, and your son's life is forever changed. Our guest tonight is here to tell us about his experience with his son. Please help me welcome Gary Washington. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I was reading over the information that you sent, and I mean, let's start from the beginning. Before we get into, your son being arrested, what was going on in his life? He was 19 years old. What was going on in his life at the time, leading up to this?
So, right. So at the time, like you just said, he was 19 years old, working full time. He was working at the hospital as a surgical tech.
Hmm.
Tech. He was in nursing school full time. He had just found out that he was about to be a father. So, he was doing everything
Yeah.
to get him like in order to be a daddy or whatnot. Him and his girlfriend, they was doing good. They was looking for apartments because they was living in separate places. But when they found out they had a baby coming, they
Yeah.
started looking for their own apartment together, and everything was looking good. Like
He was doing his thing.
just a normal life. You know what I'm saying? He figured like, okay, I'm about to be a father. I need to step it up,
Yeah.
and that's what he was doing.
Yeah. So you get one night you get a call from your mother, and she's frantic. What's going on? Tell us about the call?
Okay, so the backstory of the whole situation is there was a shooting that happened where 4 girls got shot. All of them got shot from the back. So a couple of them got shot like in the back, torso, legs, things like that. There was at a block party when all this happened.
Right.
And, so it was hundreds of people there at this block party. And it happened in August of 2023. So it was warm outside still at the time or whatnot.
Yeah.
So again, this happened in August of 2023. My son actually came here to Atlanta to see me for my birthday, which is at the end of August.
Right.
We had the gender reveal party in September. Everything was cool or whatnot. So come November the 3rd, it was the morning time. I actually was supposed to went back home to Ohio just for the weekend, just to spend time with family. But I'm like, nah, it's cold up there. I decided to book a flight to Miami or whatnot.
Yeah.
So as I'm getting ready to, head out the door to go to Miami, I get a phone call from my mom. Like she's hysterical. Like
Right.
I can't understand what she said or anything like that. But I hear a lot of commotion going on in the background. So I'm like, mom, calm down, calm down. What's going on? She was like, the police is here. They come to get your baby. They come to get your baby. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, coming to get who? Like, even though that's my only son, but at this time I'm lost. Like, why are the police coming to get my baby or my son?
Right.
So I hear the police, in the background, they still shouting out orders. I hear the K9 dogs barking and stuff like that. Yeah, I can hear everything going on. So next thing I know, my son come out the room or whatnot, and I hear the police tell me like, "Put your hands up, put your hands up." They yelling at him, but man, dude, it's cold up. It's November the 3rd, so it's cold back in Ohio.
Right. Yeah.
So I hear my mom tell my son like, I guess my son just had on some shorts and a t-shirt, but my son, of course, don't know what's going on. So I heard my mom tell him like, no, DJ, go and put back on some clothes. You need some warmer clothes. They're taking you. So they let him go back, put some more clothes on. And then I hear one officer say, he's taking too long. If he don't hurry up, we're going to come and drag him out. So my mom's telling him like, DJ, hurry up, hurry up. So next thing I know, I hear them
didn't say
yelling,
why.
hey, get on the ground.
They didn't say why he was being arrested.
No, they didn't tell us anything.
Yeah.
They kept saying, once we get him in custody, we will let you all know. We'll let you all know. But prior to, my mom opening the door, or I should say, when she opened the door, they shoved my mom on the ground with guns and stuff like that in her face.
Yeah.
So my son, get some warmer clothes on. The police, tell him to get on the ground. You know what I'm saying? They handcuff him. I hear them, taking my son out the door or whatnot. So my mom had me on speakerphone. Then next thing I know, I hear the female officer say he's been arrested for felonious assault. And I'm like, felonious assault?
Right.
Like, for what, who, when, like,
right,
what's going on? And, my mom asked the same thing. And the officer's like, well, that's the only thing I could tell you. We have a warrant out for his arrest for felonious assault. So they transport my mom, they leave. All of a sudden, I get a call, maybe like 20 minutes later from the jail. And of course, it's my son. He was like, Dad, they say I don't have no bond. And this is on a Saturday. So he was like, I got to wait until Monday to go
Monday,
to
yeah.
court or
Yeah.
whatnot. I'm like, all right, just, keep your head up. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get you an attorney or whatnot. And we're going to see, what we could do. So, that being a Saturday, I got in touch with the attorney finally that Saturday afternoon. The attorney retainer fee was 12,500 that I
Right.
had to
Yeah.
pay over the phone before he would even talk to me.
Yeah.
Mind you, by this time I'm in Miami, so my whole Miami trip is ruined at this
Oh
time.
yeah.
My mind gone, trying to focus on what's going on with my son and stuff like that. So I take, get on the phone with the attorney, pay the attorney retainer fee. That Monday come around, he go to court. Mind you, I'm still in Miami because I wasn't gonna leave Miami until that Monday afternoon. But my mom and then my son's mother, was at court or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
He get to court, and mind you, my son has no criminal record at all. Only a
Right.
traffic violation for like crossing over marked lanes or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get to
No
court,
previous record. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
none. $1 million straight
$1
bond.
million.
No 10%, no nothing. 1 mil. 1 mil. So my son called me like within 15 minutes after the court hearing, and the news was there also. But it's a lot of cases that go on. So I didn't think the news, because my son's mother took it and would text me while she was in the courtroom. It was like, the news is here, but do you think they're here for our son? I'm like, I doubt it. You know what I'm saying? It's all
Right.
these other cases going on. But sure enough, they was there for my son. So he called me, I guess, once he get back from the court back into the jail. And at this time, I could hear it in his voice. He was like, Dad, I just lost everything. He said, that was a hard blow. He said, I don't know what to do. So he started asking questions like, so it's going to be locked up with murderers and rapists and stuff like that. I'm like,
I know
unfortunately,
he's
son,
scared. I know
yes,
he's
with
scared.
the, oh, yeah, definitely. And especially with the charges of felonious assault, you're definitely going to be classified in that pot with,
And
like
he
I said,
was
the
facing
murders, the
55
rapists,
years, right?
the exactly
Yeah.
55 years he was facing. So that's how all that transpired. But the kicker is, when this shooting happened back in August, they waited 3 months to pick up my son.
Yeah.
3 whole months. So that's what raised the eyebrow. Like, why did y'all wait 3 months
Right.
to come and get my son? And the night of the shooting, because where the shooting took place, it detained everybody in the area, and my son was one of the ones that detained. So
That
my
night,
whole
the
question
night of the
was,
shooting,
Rip,
they detained your son.
the
Let
night
him
of the
go.
shooting, they detained my son along with everybody else and let
Right.
everybody go.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is, if my son was the shooter, why did y'all let him go that night?
Right.
That
Right.
was my first question.
Yeah.
Couldn't get no answers or anything like that, of course. So, that's when it's like, okay, what do we do now? My son's sitting in jail, $1 million fine, no 10%.
What's the attorney telling you?
What do we do? The attorney just pretty much told us, okay, and this when I learned a lot about the court system. So my attorney has said, okay, he at charge, went in front of the judge for the arraignment. The judge arraigned him on this $1 million bond. The next step is goes in front of the grand jury. The prosecutor takes it in front of the grand jury. The grand jury decide they want to indict him. The attorney said usually the grand jury don't happen very quick. Usually that's like take 2 weeks or so after
Yeah.
he goes for arraignment. Whatnot. He said, so in these 2 weeks time, I'm going to, try to gather up, as much videos off of ring cameras, get police body cams to get your son out of jail because, the attorney said, I think they got the wrong guy.
The attorney said that. Okay.
That was on a Monday he went to court. That Wednesday, 2 days later, after he get arraigned, the grand jury indicted. It didn't take a week. It didn't take 2 weeks, like the attorney has said in the normal process. They did it 2 days after the arraignment.
Did they
So we
explain
get a
why it
call
was
from
so
his attorney.
quick?
Was like, I have some. Even the attorney couldn't even explain why it was. He was caught off guard. He said, you know what, Mr. Washington, I can't really give you no explanation behind it. He was like, usually, this is take at least a week or two to get this in front of the grand jury, but they got this in front of the grand jury this morning. This was on that Wednesday morning, and the grand jury came back with an indictment. He said, now with the grand jury indictment, he said, I don't want you to be alarmed. When you see the charges, he had 4 counts of felonious assault, 1 charge of discharging a firearm in a public area.
Mm-hmm.
He said now since the grand jury has indicted him, the charges doubled.
Because
So
it was
now
4, and then they
it's
turned. Yeah,
8 counts.
yeah,
Yeah, so 4 turned into 8, and then
yeah.
they kept the 1 count of discharging the firearm in the prohibited area. So now it has 9 charges on
Wow,
him,
wow,
felony charges.
yeah,
He was like, so next thing, since the grand jury indicted him, the only way now is we have to go to trial. He said, but now, since the holidays is coming up, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, the courts shut down the second week of December and don't resume trials until mid-January.
yeah.
He said, so I want to get a speedy trial, but the earliest I'm going to look at is getting your son a trial date is February. Mind you, his firstborn daughter due date was January 28th. So that means he would have sat in jail, missed the birth of
Missed
his
the birth of his
daughter,
daughter. Yeah,
missed all holidays, and missed everything.
yeah.
So his attorney started filing motions. I said, what can we do at this time? He was like, the bond is excessive amount. He said murderers don't even get $1 million bond
Wow,
sometimes. He
wow.
said no one got killed. He's like, the bond is really excessive. So he filed a motion to get the bond reduced. The first motion he filed, the judge denied the motion after that $1 million trade. He said his job is to keep the public safe, that my son is a threat to society.
Yeah.
So the lawyer went back, filed the second motion to reduce bond, because you get, I think, 3 times, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
The second motion, the judge denied it again. Said, no, we're going to keep the bond at $1 million. So by this time, we going into like Thanksgiving, a week of Thanksgiving.
All right.
It was just something about this attorney. It just wasn't sitting well with me. Yeah, he was good with returning my phone calls and answering questions and things like that. But off it, he would start talking about, oh, well, maybe we have to, try to take a plea deal or, bargain. And he said we don't want to piss the prosecutors off and stuff like that. And my whole thing is, I don't care about pissing the
Right.
prosecutors off. Like, I
Innocent.
care
Right.
about, finding justice for my son. Like,
Right.
so that kind of, scared me a little bit, because it's like, okay, you worried about upsetting the prosecutor. So do you really have the best interest in my son?
Yeah.
So I end up hiring that
Sorry,
attorney
that one. Yeah.
the day before Thanksgiving, getting a whole new attorney. With that came another $7,500
Yeah.
returning fee. So
Yep.
now we up to $19,500 for just an attorney and still nothing else. So the attorney I got was actually the attorney I really wanted in the first place, but the day he got locked up was a Saturday. I couldn't get in touch with this attorney. So I was able to reach out to him for Thanksgiving. He was like, yes, this is going to be my fee. Paid it. He started representing my son. So he filed the third and final motion like the first week of December to reduce the
bill.
bond or whatnot.
And
The judge did grant that motion.
$500,000. Talk about what
Yes.
your son went through when he was locked up, because he was in solitary confinement. He was jumped. Talk about that.
Yes. So the time that he was in there, he was in jail a total of 39 days. 39 days that he was in there, he was jumped. As soon as he got his commissary, he got jumped for his commissary by 2 days or whatnot. Luckily, he was okay. He just said his ribs and stuff like that was bruised, but he was he got put in solitary confinement on 2 different occasions for contraband that his cellmate had. The first cellmate had some type of makeshift shank or something like that. So even though the cellmate admitted to it, they put him and my son, in lockdown or whatnot, where you only out for 1 hour a day, you locked down for 23 hours. And I couldn't understand that. Like, if his cellmate admitted to it, why is my son, pretty much being punished for his suit? But of course, they said it's just jail policy. It's just what they do for all inmates until the jail higher ups decide to let my son out and put him back.
Yeah.
So that happened on two different occasions. So he didn't have no easy time at all in
No.
there. So just imagine you being 19, never been in jail at all, getting sitting there on $1 million bond. You already lost your job. You pretty much have lost everything.
Right. Yeah, because he
Now
lost
you
his
being in a
job when
job.
he put out the program,
Ne-
the nursing program and everything.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
So
So it's
uh
like,
yeah,
what do you do?
yeah, yeah. So
No, go ahead.
when did they decide to drop they were gonna drop the charges? When did they how did we get there?
Finally, after bonding my son out of jail, his first court date was January 23rd.
Okay.
We went to court. That's when his trial was or whatnot. When we get there was no one there. It was just myself, my son, my mom, like my son's support, and the prosecutor. We were like, okay, this is weird for it to be a trial. Like, where
Right.
everybody at or whatnot. No one's there. So of course the prosecutor continued the case. So long story short, the prosecutor continued the case for a whole entire year. Mind you, on January 23rd court date, when the day the trial was supposed to initially started, the court clerk read off the DNA. My son's DNA was not a match at
Hmm.
all. My son's fingerprints was not a match.
Yep.
When the court clerk read that off, my son's attorney was like, "We're going to beat this case." The prosecutor said, "That don't mean nothing. I'm going to try to find video evidence." So that's when the prosecutor asked for a continuance. Get another continuance like following. Imagine I'm flying from Atlanta back home to Ohio for each court date. Get another continuance. Same thing. Still no evidence or anything like that. No one showing up. So finally, a whole year later, the judge had took and told the prosecutor, like, I'm not giving no more continuance. November the 6th of 2024, it's going to be jury trial. It's either go to trial, I'll come up with some type of plea agreement, or y'all figure out what y'all going to do or whatnot.
Right.
So November 6th, 2024, we get to court. Andrew again, this whole time, this whole year of going to court, no one's there. No police officer, no detective, nobody. Get there November the
So no one's
6th.
showing up for these
Four
cases.
police officers, nobody.
Wow.
Except for on November the 6th, the day the trial, the last trial date that the judge gave for extension.
Uh-huh.
It's four police officers, two detectives, and one of the victims finally shows up and whatnot.
Okay.
So I'm like, dang, this is weird. Like, how come all this time nobody's showing up, and
Right.
all of a sudden everybody is here? Like, this ain't sitting right with me.
Right.
So we sitting there or whatnot. The prosecutor and my son, the attorney, they talking or whatnot, going over evidence. So again, they have no body cam footage. They said they can't find the body cam footage. They can't find no pictures. They can't find anything all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So my son attorney, they give my son attorney a screenshot of like a body cam, it was like a still picture of a guy in handcuffs laying on the ground, his pants drooping, and you could see like on his underwear and whatnot, it had the letters. It was explicit on the back of it. I couldn't say it on here, but it was
Okay.
explicit on the back of his underclothes. So the attorney tells us to go out, meet him outside in the hallway. He took and tell us, he said, all the officers showed up, as y'all could see. This is what they have. He was like, I want to take it to trial. He said, but again, you're facing 55 years. He said, I feel confident, because there's no DNA or nothing like that that we could beat this. He said, however, by it being all these officers here, it's going to testify to say that you are the shooter. He said it's going to be hard for me to, try to convince a jury of 12 against four, or I should say a total six officers
Hmm.
that you didn't do it.
Right.
The attorney, like, I'm just telling you what we're looking at right now. He was like, and plus, they just brought this photo to me of you laying on the ground in handcuffs. Now, don't get me wrong. When I looked at the photo, I'm like, this ain't even my son.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
who is this person they got on the ground?
Yeah.
But it was the photo that they had took or from the body cam from the night when they detained everybody. So when they showed the attorney the photos, the course attorney showed us, like, they saying this is you and points to the picture. I look, I'm like, nah, that ain't my son. my son mother were like, nah, that ain't him. My son looking confused, and his attorney like, what you looking confused for? Like, my son was like, no, that ain't me. My
Right.
son pointed. He said, that's me right there standing up in handcuffs right next to the guy y'all they got on the ground.
Wow.
So my son was like, let me show you. And that's why I say thank God for selfies.
Yeah.
Because my son took and pulled up a selfie that he had took of himself like an hour before he went to this block party with the
Wow.
same exact outfit on and showed his attorney like, look, this is my same outfit. And you can see the time that I took this picture. That's me
Yep.
standing up
Yep.
next to the guy they got laying down. Like, that's not me. So
Mm-hmm.
the attorney was like, oh, we got him now. So the attorney went back to the prosecutor, showed him what my son had got. He told my son like, send me those photos. My son sent those photos. The attorney showed the prosecutor. Prosecutor told the officer like, y'all got the wrong person, which we've been telling them for a whole year. Like, and the
Exactly.
attorney been
Right.
trying to
Right.
tell them the whole year,
Yeah.
y'all have the wrong person. There's no DNA. There's no nothing. It's people that was witness there, and video shows who the shooter is.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is, what's been the problem this whole year?
Yep.
So once the prosecutor showed the police officers the thing, it was like a walk of shame for them. They all had their heads down, because they had to pass us up in the court hallway or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So they all had their heads down, wouldn't look up at us. And so at that time, the prosecutor was like, well, unfortunately, I can't do nothing today. They was like, we'll have to continue with this case one more day. The prosecutor said, come back tomorrow, or the judge said, come back tomorrow, and we're going to dissolve the case. So on November the 7th, went back to court, and then that's when the prosecutor apologized to my son, and the judge finally dismissed all charges
Now
with my son
explain
and
to
cleared his name.
everyone why you put out all this money over $500,000 over that, like I think it was closer to 530 some thousand dollars, why you weren't able to
Mm-hmm.
get your money back.
Oh, so that's another thing that they didn't tell me about. So the reason why I did not get my money back is because by me being in Atlanta, this happened in Ohio. My main focus was just to get my son
Of
out of
course, yeah.
jail the quickest way
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to, of course, travel with that much money on me on the plane or even in the car to
Mhm.
Ohio or whatnot. So calling the courts and things like that, they said the best thing is to go through a bail sponsor. I did not know at the time, with the bail sponsor, a lot of bonds are 10% bond.
Right.
So say for instance, if it was a $50,000 bond or whatnot, the bail bondsman would take 10%
Right.
of the 50,000. That would be the bail bond charge.
Yeah.
Well, since it wasn't no 10%, it was a straight bond or whatnot. I was not entitled to my money back. And I did not find that out until after the judge dismissed the charges. My son's attorney
Oh,
asked, he's like, Mr. Washington, before y'all leave, how did you pay the money? I said, I had to go through a bail bond, man. Because, I'm live in Georgia. He shook his head. He said, if you would have came up here and paid it directly to the courts, you would have got every penny back. He said,
wow.
so since you paid through a bail bond and there was no 10%, you're not entitled to anything back. My
That is
heart dropped. I'm thinking like, I
one.
get it. He's an attorney, like, but he's a criminal defense attorney. Like maybe he don't know about the
Yeah.
civil part or the money part. All the bail bonds been telling him like, hey, this is so and so. I used you so you could, pay the money for my son to get out. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I remember you, Miss Russian. I just let you know they just dismissed all charges. Only words he had for me was, "I'm glad it all worked out for you."
Mm, mm, mm,
That
mm.
was it.
And I know that you said that
That was it.
your concern was what if you didn't have the money? What if you didn't have, the resources to bond your son out? I mean, he could have easily stayed in there. He could have easily stayed in there.
Oh yeah, he definitely would have stayed there. And I feel like honestly, if I wouldn't have the resources to even get an attorney, if he would have to get a public defender, and this is nothing against any public defender that's out there or watches your show or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, if he would have got a public defender, by being a public defender, wouldn't have the time to dig as much as,
Right.
what I'm saying, his attorney did. to
Because you
clear
get
his name.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
And I really do feel like
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, because they defend so many because they just deal with the court solely.
Mhm.
So I feel like my son would have been railroaded in this situation, and my son would have went to prison.
Yeah.
He definitely went to prison
Yeah.
because he wouldn't have had nobody to fight for him.
Right.
He wouldn't have nobody to fight for him, and that's really concerning to me to know that my son, an innocent young man, would have spent 55 years
Hmm.
in
Right.
prison.
Right.
But to me, I equate that to almost a life term because he was 20 at the time. So
Exactly.
he would have been 75.
Yeah,
That's a life term.
it is. So your son, I know you sent some before and after pictures of him. What toll did it take on him being in jail for those 39 days? And situations, what toll did it take on him and on the family, on your family?
It was rough. I mean, looking at my son, going in there or before all this happened, you could tell my son was lively. He's always smiling. But the day that he came home, and I wasn't up there when he had took got out because I had to work here in Atlanta and whatnot.
Yeah.
But of course they took pictures and things like that. He looked sick, honestly. Like my son is already a small frame guy. He
Yeah.
had lost weight. He just looked tired. You could just look at his face, like he just looked at defeated, tired, wore out. He used to call me. I mean, just imagine you being a parent. You used to getting routine messages, phone message or text messages and phone calls from your son. Then also you switching to a jail app where you have
Right.
to text and wait for him to get the message to respond and not being able to see him and everything else. And he used to tell me like, Dad, I'm just cold. It's cold in here. Or Dad, I'm hungry.
Mm.
I'm like, that's the worst feeling ever
Oh
is
yeah.
to not being able to help your child. Like you're
Exactly.
completely helpless at that time.
Yeah.
Completely helpless at that time.
Mhm. Yeah.
And as far as on the family part, again, my mom, just from the day they came to her house, it took a toll on her mentally. Like I said, they broke down her fence, everything
Yeah.
else. We had to replace that. They wouldn't even replace her fence getting fixed. Myself, it beat me down. Like
Mhm.
that's my only child. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm close to my son, very
Yeah.
close. So to know that my son is locked up and to know I am completely helpless, there is absolutely nothing I can do but leave it in the hands of an attorney and
Yeah.
just hope the court system do what they could do. And I'm literally at wait for the court to decide on the next court date. And it was a horrible feeling. I ain't gonna lie.
I can
It weighed
imagine.
me down emotionally. It affected my relationship at the time. I spent a lot of nights. I'm scared to admit. You know what I'm saying? I was a lot of times emotional. I had
Mhm.
plenty of nights where days where I just cried. You know what I'm saying? Just out
Yeah.
of frustration and
Right.
anger,
Right.
and just wanting to get my son out, but can't. Same thing with his mom. She crying all the time and calling me, and I'm trying to
Mhm.
be strong for everybody else, but
Yeah.
yeah, at the same time, I'm weak too at the time because it's my son that's involved as
Right.
well.
Right.
So it definitely took a toll
Yeah.
on us all. On us
And I
all.
know you talk about how important it is making sure that we always talk about elections and how important they are, but you talk about how the local elections are very important, and why is it important as it relates to this case?
It's important because your prosecutors and everything else start at your local level.
Yeah.
Your judges, it's all at your local level.
Yeah.
So everybody, I ain't gonna say everybody, a lot of people forget about the local election or don't necessarily go out and vote at the local election, but they might go for the presidential election.
Hmm.
But I tell everybody, it starts at your local level election that put everybody, in place as far as your Senate and your state representatives and everything else.
Yeah.
So definitely, pay attention to who's running for office, who's the prosecutors that's running. Do research on those prosecutors, see
Absolutely.
what type of conviction rate they got, or even go as far as to see, what type of people they are convicted. Is it mostly minorities? And I'm not making this about a race or
Hmm.
anything like that,
Hmm.
because a prosecutor that had this case was actually a black prosecutor, so it wasn't a white or black thing at all. But it still plays a factor on, who are you voting for and putting in office at a local level.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. A lot of people don't realize, the awareness on how much impact it could have on someone's life by not voting or not paying attention to who you have at the local level.
Absolutely. So how was your son doing today? I know he has his daughter is about to turn 2 now. Is that right? His daughter about to turn 2.
Yeah,
How
she just turned one. She just turned
oh
one
one.
2 weeks
Okay.
ago.
Yeah,
So
well,
he's yes, yes, yes. So he's doing good, but it's still been a struggle because even after everything was dismissed, he had to file a motion to get his record expunged, which I
right.
thought was bizarre. Like,
Because he was applying for jobs
so
and
he
it was
still has
showing
not been
up.
able to get a job.
Yeah.
It will still show up as 9 felonies.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he still couldn't get no job or anything like that. So, again, the case was dismissed officially November the 7th. They just filed the dismissal with the court, the clerk, on December 27th. So
Wow.
it took another 50 days for them to file the dismissal. Even with the dismissal been on this record, any employer that runs this record, it still shows up 9 felonies with a dismissal. So
Mhm.
literally on January 30th, he got a court date, went to court for an expungement. And literally, I just checked about 2 hours ago, the court website, when you type in his name, only thing that comes up is that traffic violation that happened,
Right. Oh my
changing
gosh.
the
Yeah.
lanes. So finally, everything is clear. So I texted him too and told him, like, hey, son, it's finally, I mean, I could finally say now it's truly over.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
truly over. I mean, you could apply for jobs, you could
Hmm.
apply for
Have his
apartments
life back.
because, again,
Yeah.
he got his life back. It's going to take some time, but, is now he's scared almost.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Of
he really
course.
don't trust police no more.
Yeah.
Um, he's always looking over his shoulder because he was like,
Mhm.
if they come and got me 3 months later, then what
Right.
else could possibly
Right.
happen?
Yeah.
So, and I'm the same way. I'm constantly, just kind of looking over my shoulder. I'm like, if it happened to him, it could happen to
Yeah.
myself. It could happen to anybody.
Absolutely.
It could
Absolutely.
happen to anybody.
So what is your
But he's
takeaway? What do
slowly
you,
trying to get his life back.
well, we're definitely rooting for him, and I know he will. I know he will. He has a great dad that has his back, so I know he will. But what is it? What is it you want the listener to take away from your son's story and your family story, really, tonight?
I want everybody to take away is don't give up on your love.
Hmm.
Like, and they always say that you're innocent until proven guilty, but in all reality, I'm gonna be, in my personal opinion, you're guilty until proven innocent
Yeah.
because you have to prove you're innocent. So
Yeah.
you're not innocent until proven guilty. And and this showed me because I thought even because my son was not convicted, he could still go on with his life while out on bond and get jobs and get his job back, but he couldn't do it
Right.
because it was a pending case or
Yeah.
whatnot. So you're really guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
Just be careful. Don't take anything for granted.
Mhm.
Your life could change at any moment. Your loved one's life could change at any moment. Try to, be financial responsible if you can. When I say that, if you can, try to put money off to a side. I mean, because anything could happen
Anything.
where you might need that savings to, potentially save your own self or save your loved one from being incarcerated or wherever the case may be. So, I just try to tell people, don't believe everything that you hear on TV because the news media plastered my son as this
Yeah.
horrible
You said
person.
that. Yep.
People was
Yep.
getting threats and
Yep.
everything else. People was making fake Facebook pages with my son's mugshot.
Yep.
It was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. So, I tell everybody, like, just be mindful that it could be any one of us.
Yeah.
It could be anyone of us, and be kind to everyone
Mm.
because you never know what the next person is going through. You
Very
never know
true.
what the next person is going through. You think you might have it rough, but it could be somebody out there going through it 10 times worse. And I kind of did some research once my son had went through this, and I wrote it down. Where is that? Right now in the United States, they said it's 138,000 to 354,000 that's in prison right now on convictions that they did not do. I
Wow.
mean, if you think about it, that's over a quarter million.
Yeah. That is a lot. That's a lot. And we see it all the time where
Yeah,
these people get, exonerated, but they're, senior citizens at that point. You know what I mean? And yes, it's good they're free, but
exactly.
the best years of their life, they've spent it in jail. You know what I mean? Or in prison. So yeah.
And they will never get that time back. Like my son's, he says to this day, I would never get those 39 days back. Like I
Yeah.
spent Thanksgiving in
Right.
jail. Like he said, I would never get that time back. And you don't. And I tell everybody, time is something that you can never get back,
Never get it back.
ever.
Never get it back.
So I mean, what do you do? I mean, it's unfortunately nothing that we can do,
Yeah.
but try to move on from it. But it was tough. It
I
was
can
a tough
imagine.
year for us, but I'm looking forward to now that it's completely over with.
Mhm.
Looking forward, what 2025 is going to bring us and the things that my son has planned. He now wants to actually try to. He don't want to be no lawyer. He told me he don't want to be a lawyer, but he said he do want to try to find a way to start a nonprofit like a 501c to be
Yeah.
able to help other people,
Going through the same.
men or and women that's going through the same thing, a way that he could try to help them, or even, if it's not even on a monetary basis, like just,
Mhm.
advice or just be there for them or whatnot. Cause he was like, he been through it.
Yeah.
He been
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you, Gary Washington, for joining us tonight and bringing awareness to this. Again, you said there's so many people going through this, and I'm sure that you and your son's story can touch other people and give them hope that things can get back to some kind of normalcy after something like this. So, thank you for your time, and we'll be right back after this.